Now let's say that you are a person who has used Logic and you have 10.2.4 and you want to upgrade this. Well, so that's where I'm going to go with next, a little further detail. Um, and you're worried about doing, screwing up something. You have projects that you've started. If you imported them into 10.3, will it ruin them? Will they not work anymore? Etc. So, as anybody would tell you, what you need to do is either have an external hard drive or a partition on your drive so that you can install separate installations of Logic so that you can keep your old version 10.2.4 and start to use 10.3. And that way, what I would recommend probably is if you're working on a project right now in 10.2.4, you should probably work on it until you think you're probably finished with it. Stay in 10.2.4, and then when you get 10.3 to experiment with it or start some new projects for experimentation purpose to make sure that it's working the way you want and nothing gets gobbled up. But I'm going to show you, I did one little kind of experimental thing here so far. Hold on, I'll show you. Well, I'll tell you what I did. I opened projects in 10.3. I opened more than one, and I made some changes. And I had no glitches, but I didn't do much with it. I fiddled a little bit with some compression settings and so forth like that, and did a little bit of editing. And then I saved it. So it was saved in a 10.3 version, and this is where the issue comes in. A lot of times when you have a new version, that new version will open older versions, but when you save it in the new version, the older version won't open the newer version. So I went back to 10.2.4 and opened those versions that were saved in 10.3, in 10.2.4, and they opened, and they were usable. Maybe I can demonstrate this here. I'll try that. It will ask you if you want to save the changes. If you make any move that would be something that would not be saved if you don't change it. You'll see that right there, warning this project was created by a newer Logic Pro X version. Okay, so. It's working, and like I said, I even made edits in it and so forth, and all that was working fine. And I don't see any plugins bombing out or anything like that. So it's working, but what it does is let's see. Yeah, if I try to close the project, it asks me to save. So what I'm presuming here is that I can save it back to 10.2.4, which I'm going to try to do. That's very interesting. Okay, so apparently it still recognizes it as 10.3, but it's allowing you to save it. Now that might be somewhere you might run into a glitch. I don't know. But at least to this point, you can get by with it and, and not totally corrupt it if you want to get going on it. But I would probably recommend if you're in the middle of some significant project that you just simply finish it, especially if you have other plugins. I don't have any outside plugins running on this at all. I used to have a bunch, and I never upgraded to more when I got the Logic 10.0 version, because the ones in Logic are pretty good. So, but as I was saying, it looks like you could get away with it if you're going to toggle around with that and you want to screw around with it. But that's kind of the caveat emptor thing. If you upgrade, you should make a partition and install one on a different installation. As you may or may not know, you have to have 10.11 or 10.12, which is is El Capitan or Sierra, in order to use this. And what seems to be the significance of that is El Capitan and Sierra have this. The graphics have a more of a plain, well-contrasted look in almost every piece of software. Whereas you used to have, prior to this, you had shading in certain ways that I never liked. It made it look like you had a bric-a-brac on your house, or one of those old station wagons with the bric-a-brac on them, Woodies. I never liked it, and it made it hard to see things. But I believe that the issue is that you need to have El Capitan or Sierra is because of it is part of the system, inbuilt fonts and graphics displaying that is used to with the program. You have to have that. It's using system resources in that regard. You can see they're simpler diagrams, but they look clearer, and they're just kind of straight colors without a bunch of shading or anything like that, and it's much easier to see. And I didn't like it before, so this is the way to go. And as I was saying, I'm sorry I opened Calendar in the wrong OS. You can see this is on El Capitan, and this shows you that again in Calendar, that it's kind of the contrast is very straight, the colors are more basic, they're easier to see, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a part of these two new systems, and that's the reason that's important. The only thing that means to me is that it probably helps lower the overhead of new versions and sort of things like that for them in their programming, because it uses system resources for other things that have already been created. But if there is a new system and there's some kind of change in that, it often makes it more challenging for the next software iteration, because it will know there will be a lot of basic things about it that don't work anymore that it relied on for the system. So if it were want to stay looking like it did, they'd probably have to do kind of internal fudges. So to me, it's kind of that's the kind of thing that can happen when you rely on a lot of integrated system resources. And it's not like they haven't been doing that for a long, long time, but it seems to me to be even more than it ever was before. So.